George Bush actually responded to this the next day by phoning Tony Blair and saying, look, if you don't want to come, you don't have to come. We'll find a way around it. And there was a massive row in number 10 with Jack Straw. I mean, obviously this may be him trying to get off the hook, but I don't think it is, because he never publicly said any of this stuff. Jack Straw and others saying, don't do it, Tony. And there was a, you know, so they were, to say they were wavering is an understatement. There was a plan B that the rest of the cabinet, much of the rest of the cabinet, was actually trying to persuade Tony Blair to do. So, you know, so much for the idea that actually we didn't make an impact, even at that simple level of rocking the government at the time. I just want to mention the media as well, because it's quite interesting. I mean, the media is either run by the government or owned by the big corporations, and is normally uniformly hostile to any kind of mass protest. That's obvious. But actually, one of the things that happened for a short window of time around the demonstration and before the war is that whole sections of the media started to have second thoughts and actually began to run articles supporting the demonstrations. The Mirror actually met with us, produced placards for the demo, had headlines saying, come on the demonstration, and completely came over to the movement. But other papers published articles supporting the demos, they put maps on how to get to the demos. I remember a very bizarre moment. The night before February the 14th, the weatherman on BBC said, if you're going on the demo tomorrow, you better wrap up because it's going to be cold. And I remember thinking, oh shit, but the weather's going to be bad. And I was like, did he say that? And it was just like, and it kind of, you realise that, you know, when people say, and the problem with the left a lot of the time is that the left tends to sort of overestimate the power of the other side, the ideological machine that they have, which a lot of the time is effective. But the one thing that can start to undermine that, the one thing that can begin to break the block that holds the system together, is actually a mass movement. Because other interviewees who I spoke to in the media and stuff, they were saying, you know, what can you do from the point of view of the government when you've got a movement so big that even people on the media are coming on the demonstrations, and the BBC, by the way, banned people from coming on the demos because they were so worried about it. But what can you do? What can this kind of propaganda machine do when even the people who generate the propaganda are on the demonstrations? It can be broken down. And I think this is, you know, clearly they reassembled their arguments and their forces soon after, and the pro-war consensus was re-established. But that moment did give you a glimpse of just how powerful mass movements can be. And of course, in the longer term, I don't think it's right that we didn't make a difference. I mean, the truth of the matter is that back in the day, I remember, I'm old enough, unfortunately, to remember the Falklands War, and Thatcher actually pursued a war in the Falklands to win an election, and she did it successfully. But now, when politicians, when and if, and well, it is more when, unfortunately, they start planning new wars, the calculation they have to make is they're going to lose public opinion over this, they're going to lose votes, the polls are going to go against them, there's going to be protests. And that's a different situation. And I believe that, you know, you have to ask yourself, what would have happened if there hadn't been an anti-war movement? And I believe that, you know, there would have been many more wars already, that Iran almost certainly would have been hit, and that we have shaped the reality of the situation, not nearly as much as we want to, but nevertheless that we have. And that brings me on to my last point, really, which is that about the kind of, you know, the place of the historical place of the war on terror in the recent past. Because again, it's not so prevalent now because it's been so clearly disproved by the facts in a way. But I think there was a mood a couple of years ago after Blair went, the troops were brought out of Iraq, Obama was elected in the US, which again, actually, for all its limited effect, nevertheless was partly a product of the anti-war movement. But when all that happened, I think there was a sigh of relief in progressive circles around the world, and people thought, well, the madness is over, and, you know, hopefully we move back to something approaching normality, and, you know, this was an aberration, and, you know, hopefully the war on terror is over. Now, unfortunately, life isn't that simple, and I think that hasn't happened. And in a way, if you think about it, not surprisingly, because imperialist policy is not decided by the one or two politicians at the top of the system. It's something that is decided collectively by the whole of the establishment in a particular country, the ruling class, and so on. And it's something that's very calculated, and it's driven in the end of the day by deep economic, and political interests, and unfortunately those economic and political interests haven't changed. The fact that the basic factors that led to the war on terror in the first place, which weren't really 9/11. 9/11 was a kind of pretext, effectively, but the growing challenge to US hegemony around the world, contrasted with its continuing military dominance, these things still remain in place. If anything, they're sharper now. I mean, we argued at the time that one of the things that was driving this was the threat of the rise of China and Chinese power. Well, obviously, that's even more of a factor now. And you can see by the fact that, you know, despite austerity, defence budgets are being ring-fenced. America is talking about not withdrawing from different parts of the world. It's actually talking about extending its influence. It's talking about putting more troops and bases into the Pacific Rim in order to surround and limit China. There's now a new scramble for Africa, as people are aware, and the drive for the contest for global dominance, unfortunately, goes on unchecked, or goes on despite everything. Now, that's not to be pessimistic, because I mean, one of the characteristics of the new phase of the war on terror is actually they're not putting boots on the ground in the same way. They're putting some boots on the ground, but they're not planning, you know, tens of thousands of troops being sent into Mali or South Korea or any of these hotspots. They're more dealing with proxy wars, these horrible, sinister drones and so forth. They're talking about training other people's armies. It's a more kind of nuanced and sophisticated operation in a way. Nonetheless, you know, no less dangerous in many ways. But I think actually one of the reasons why that is happening is because they know they can't put the boots on the ground because of domestic public opinion. So I even think even this new phase of the war, horrible and barbaric though it is, in a certain sense is being shaped, or has been shaped, by the movement that we've all been involved in, us and other people around the world. And I think, just to end, that seems to me to be the situation. We're in a continuing struggle. The story's not over. We've actually limited their ability to achieve what they want to achieve, but we haven't stopped them completely, and they're still looking for new ways to conquer and new ways to dominate different parts of the world. And I think we need to get both sides of that picture. Iraq, Afghanistan, the anti-war movement have actually been a disaster for the people who wanted to pursue the project of the new American century. They've set it back in many ways. They're wounded, they're still dangerous, but they are, you know, they have taken some serious defeats. And I think we have to see both, as I say, we have to see both the horror in the situation, but also the hope that has come out of this tremendous movement. I think we need to say to people when they say protest doesn't work, I think we need to say to them the reason they say marching doesn't work is because they want us to stay at home. Thanks very much. In a way, the most interesting thing is this kind of the link between the anti-war movement in Britain and the West and the kind of movements for change in the Middle East. And when, you know, one of the things that people say is, oh, you've got to support the, you know, attacks and the arming of the Syrian people, you've got to support the humanitarian interventions is what they call it, because they try and say that's the way to spread democracy. Now that's an argument that is largely discredited, but actually the truth is that the anti-war movement in the West really did do something towards helping to generate the confidence of people to take action against their own autocrats and against the West. And there's all sorts of evidence that we had for that. I mean, we had Iraqis coming over who said that, you know, they couldn't believe that there was such massive opposition in the West, and it gave them a huge amount of confidence to continue the resistance against the occupation. And as Alistair says, there was, I mean, obviously the kind of the opposition in Iraq was very, very serious from early 2004 onwards. There was a kind of real insurgency, an insurrectionary movement in Iraq. And I think that was linked to the fact that there had been opposition in the West. And the link in the Egyptian case is absolutely clear. I mean, in Amir's film, there's loads of very, very moving interviews with Egyptian activists who said, you know, that actually the February the 15th movement gave us the confidence to begin to get back onto the streets again. And they traced their democracy movement, some of them, to that moment. You know, so I mean that's really helping to generate a serious movement for democracy. The other thing is just on Lindsay's point. I mean, you know, that is the shocking thing that I mean, I quote David Miliband in the book, who says, unbelievably, he says no more than 10 MPs actually believe Tony Blair. That's David Miliband's view on the matter. So what you had was a political elite who knew that this was wrong. At the end of the day, they didn't care, and they went along with it anyway. And I guess they went along with it for two fundamental reasons. One is the profoundly kind of poisoned political culture that now exists in the Westminster bubble. In other words, careerism, you know, just thinking about their little baubles and their little junior ministerial positions that they may be able to get. That's what they're interested in fundamentally. And the other side of it is, at a kind of deeper level, the special relationship, so-called, between Britain and the US. I think, you know, right across the political spectrum, there is a consensus that this has to be, this relationship that gives us so much, has to be the kind of cornerstone of all foreign policy. And no one dares challenge that. No one has the imagination or the sense of kind of support to stand up to that idea, because, you know, it's just too much effort. It would involve thinking about a whole new political project. It would involve thinking about a whole new way of running foreign policy and by implication running society, really. And they're just not interested in that. So I think those two things are what cemented these cowardly individuals to the whole project. And that is a, you know, there is a sort of clear link in a way between the movement against the war, the movement against the war, and the democratic deficit that we now face, which I think is so deep-seated. And if anything, that's another argument why, you know, that we have to draw from this period. If we want real change, it ain't going to come from Parliament. In the end of the day, things have got so bad that we have to say, it's not just a question of, you know, whether we can change things or not through going to the streets. There really is no alternative. Taking to the streets is the only way we're going to get things done.
Thank you, Chris.